been doing lots of stuff in Africa for quite a while for Meta. He's the Edge Strategy Manager. Yep, I got it right this time. This is always good. And he's going to talk about interesting stuff that Meta might do around peering. Over to you, Ben.
Thanks very much, Fearghas. Good morning. Great to be here. Great to see everyone. Great to see everyone in person. Those who couldn't make it, see virtually. Really excited to be here. And a team of us here that you'll get to opportunities to meet. As Fearghas mentioned, we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the automation we've been building for our public peering and sharing what that is and how peering coordinators in the room can leverage that for peering with us. Hopefully, there's some slides about to appear to aid this conversation. There we go. Normally, this presentation's given with a software engineer colleague called Jenny. Unfortunately, she couldn't make the trip, so I'll try to answer any of the software engineering questions, but we can certainly follow up. Cool, so what's the problem we're trying to solve? We're in a lucky position. We're a large global CDN. That means we have a lot of traffic. People want to peer with us because there's traffic being generated. And with that, we get many peer requests each month. And generally, that's in excess of kind of 500 emails sent to our peering@fb.com address. Of those emails, we get maintenance requests, we get, all types of requests. So that translates into about 100 actual public peering requests we need to handle. And then, to give an idea of the scale of the challenge we have here, we're connected to an excess of 210 internet exchanges globally. And that kind of translates to in excess of 44,000 public peering sessions. I think everybody knows in this room, a public peering session is a few lines of code on a router. Therefore, that translates to even more lines of code and config. And looking at the trend, really, you can see it's a bit peaky, looking at that 500 number. Maybe we join a new internet exchange, maybe we open a new POP, that generates more requests. But you can see generally here, the trend is around the 500, tailing off a little bit, and that's probably down to the automation we've built that we'll talk about shortly. And you can see, though, the number of valid requests stays pretty consistent, the lower line. So what are we trying to do? We want a streamlined experience for people who want to peer with us and make it easy. We like to move fast. We want our peers to move fast. We want to save emails. We want to save chasing to find out how to set up peering, how to get peering, or to check the status of when we have peering established. And so what have we done to help with this? We've automated it. Back to this moving fast idea, back to the concept of what we're trying to do. We're trying to make this self-service to give the easiest experience possible for our peers to peer with us. Live demos always go wrong, so we've taken a few screenshots here rather than doing a live demo, but please feel free to test this out in the room. So what's it look like? This is the facebook.com/peering page. You'll notice if you look at the top right corner, it's a little bit small. You don't need to be logged in to use this tool. You don't need a Facebook account. And on the bottom of the page, that's just off the screen, you can see there's a button that says Request Public Peering. And if you hit that, it redirects you to the PeeringDB login. And so one of the key things is this is using PeeringDB OAuth for authentication. And you put in your user credentials for PeeringDB, and then it just asks to authorize our PeeringDB account to access a few basic details we need to help configure peering with you, name, address, AS number, etc. When you click authorize on that, you get returned back to the Facebook site, and you'll get a view like this. You can see here it's our ASN or one of our ASNs in the top. So it's going to not be exactly a clear view, but you have your ASN, you have your contact email, which can be your PeeringDB1 auto filled, or you can change that if you've got a generic kind of knockout or peering out address. And then we show common IXs where we can establish peering. So we take the PeeringDB data of where we're connected to IXs, also where you're connected to IXs, and then we only show you relevant sessions that can be added. You can see here, then you can tick to select which sessions you want to add. Maybe that's all of them, maybe that's some of them. And then you can click at the bottom of the screen, the Request Public Peering button. And that's just a slightly closer view of the table where you can see the status of the IX, the IP addresses, and the session status on the right-hand side as well. We've extended this now from when we initially launched public peering. We're now also supporting private peering. So you can see here on the left-hand side of the screenshot, if it's just big enough, you know, you can put your AS in, you can select the data center, again, based on looking at peering DB data of which private facilities you're in and which private facilities we're in. You can also now upload your LOA and request a new private peering like that. So what happens if you email peering at now? Maybe you don't know this automation exists we built, maybe you just don't know how. It's there. You get an auto reply. So we now have a script which is looking at our peering at email address, identifying those requests and those emails which are public peering requests. We're now sending back an auto reply on this screen, asking you to go to our facebook.com/peering page. And so thinking back to that chart I showed at the start where we started to see emails tail off, that's because actually this automation's probably been in now for about 16, 17 months. And so we're actually getting people organically go to the Facebook page rather than email us, get the bounce back, and then go to the Facebook page. So, looking at the workflow, what actually happens to your peering request. So maybe you email peering@fb.com, and then our email categorizer will send that auto reply to you just saw. Maybe you visit facebook.com/peering. What happens here is you'll get redirected to the peering at DB page. You'll log in, the token gets passed back to us from the peering DB OAuth, and then you're able to request the peering like we looked at. Or maybe, you know, you visit our network partner portal. If you visit that, you can access the same way, but then you get directed to that peering form. And then what happens once you've made the request, this is kind of interesting, it gets sent to an internal queue internally. And at the moment, that queue gets a human review the request and make an action on it. We've actually built a bot which is now making recommendations on those requests to give a hint to the human on what action they should take. Maybe we have a very small amount of traffic with you, therefore it's going to make sense to publicly peer. Maybe we have a lot of P&Is with you and someone's made a request an error that might not make so much sense. And so we're starting to build that automation to try and aid the human who's making the final decision with a view that we might actually then start automating those requests, which are really clear cut and really simple. Once the approval suggestion's been acted on, the configuration then gets pushed automatically to our routers. And then with the tool also automatically emails the email address you included in the request and asks you to set up the sessions, and will remind you if those sessions don't get up and don't get configured and don't get established. So it's great we've talked about this automation. It's great we've kind of talked about how good it's going to be, but actually let's actually see how much impact it's really had. So I talked about it's been rolled out since April 2021, this automation. And since that time, we've handled 5,958 emails. Of that, we've had 2,118 automated requests through the tool. That's led to 1,986 approved. And that translates into 20,039 sessions configured. So I think that's many lines of config we're saving. And that's saving engineers time on both sides on trying to set up these peering requests. So a really big automation win for us. There's a few considerations we've got with rolling out this tool. We don't want to just roll it out, make sure it's making incorrect decisions or just doesn't work. So queuing system I touched on. Initially, we're pushing all public peering requests received for an internal queue. And we've built a bot, like I mentioned, which is now making recommendations on what we should act on those requests. The next stage for that is we're actually going to make that bot automate and act on the really clear-cut, simple requests to save anyone acting it. So if you're a network, you've just started up, maybe you've started added users, you've got a couple of hundred megs of traffic, it's pretty clear-cut that we want a peer review. And so we'll not act on that automatically. Relying on PeeringDB. I'm sure everyone in here has got a PeeringDB account. If not, please get one. But we already relied on PeeringDB for our configuration of public peering before we rolled this tool out. So extending that relying on the platform isn't something new, doesn't bring new risk. our automation for configuring BGP sessions before we had this tool actually relied on peer and DB data. So when we fired up our internal tool, we would query our peer and DB record and the peer's peer and DB record and only offer up the sessions that we could configure in the same way it does an external tool. So that's no new issue for us. And then no Facebook account. We've heard this. We know that network engineers necessarily don't want to share their private Facebook account with their employer to access our tools. So we've rolled this tool out using PeriDB OAuth, and that means you don't need to be logged in. It's great. We're talking about this. It'd be great to see others do this as well. You know, you can see all your BGP sessions in one place. You can configure new BGP sessions, and you know, using PeriDB makes sense because everyone's got an account, right? PeriDB OAuth is pretty easy to implement. It took us about a day. If anyone has any questions on that, we're definitely happy to talk on our experiences. And others are using PeriDB OAuth too. You know, IXP Manager, run by built by the INX team, and the Peering Manager. You know, the idea that making this a central authentication system for peering coordinators and peering managers to authenticate themselves. And you know, automation saves time. You can see that from the number of sessions we configured that saves an engineer logging into a router and configuring those manually. There's a few components if you wanted to do this yourself. You know, we're lucky we have a big software engineering resources within the business, but you know, we know not everyone has that same luxury. You need a tool to generate per peer configs. There's our open source tools for this. You need automation to then push those configs to your routers. And then you need a system to monitor BGP session status. And then a workflow engine to coordinate all these steps. And then finally, a landing page for peers to request sessions. We're interested if anyone wants to work with us on building and collecting open source tools and having this as kind of a toolkit that small operators can use. We're interested in talking to anyone who'd like to work with us on that. We're really keen to give something back to the community, allow others to do this with ease. And leading into that, talking about the industry standard, PeriDB login, it'd be great to see more people use this for peering coordinators to authenticate themselves. It seems, like we all have PeriDB accounts. It seems an obvious thing to do. It's another non-profit kind of community-run organization. Open source tools for this as well. There's the PeriDB toolset, which can support, driving this as an industry standard. And then we're really interested also in extending this maybe further and actually having a programmatic API, removing the human element at all on both sides. If anyone's interested in talking to us about that, we can link you in with Jenny, who's the software engineer who helps us write this, and we're trying to develop ideas on how to do that now. We only just begun. We're looking to continue extending this kind of peering automation further. We've talked about the public peering, we talked about private peering that's there now. And, I guess the exciting thing we can say coming soon is F&A requests. I think most people probably know at the moment that if you want an F&A from us, you would track us down at an in-person event like this. Now we're back at them, or you email fna@fb.com. And, back to the idea of email works, but we're trying to make it more streamlined, for you requesting something from us, but us also responding to you. And so we're just building and about to launch making F&A requests in the same way. You can see here on the left side shows you the overall view of the page. The right side is just zoomed in a little bit. So you'd enter your AS number, your additional AS numbers, your organization name, your network type, and, a bit of details about where you'd like to deploy an F&A. And then in the same way, that will come to us to review it, and we'll give you a more kind of systematic way of coming back to you, so we've got your request rather than just sending an email and waiting for a reply. This is call to action. Everyone in here hopefully has a PeriDB login. Everyone in here hopefully can, request some peering or check the status of peering with us. Please feel free to use it. Facebook.com/peering. Any issues, you can come and track me down. There's a few other folks from Meta here as well. You can track us all down, and happy to talk about it. At that point, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. So do we have any questions for Ben? Nobody wants to peer with Meta? Really? Honestly? Hey, honestly, I don't think they're ever going to take off as a company. I mean, they haven't got a big enough user base. Oh, Nishal.
Oh dear. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
My name is Nishal. I have a question for Ben.
And who are you from?
It says the internet.
Okay. He keeps wandering in and getting lost. It's very sad.
Located from the ether. Thank you, firstly, for not requiring a Facebook account. I wish you could push that message to some of the other large network operators who insist on us using their proprietary platforms to register. I was curious about the logic for your acceptance of peering requests. Is your philosophy simply to accept everything? Do you look and say, well, you're only doing maybe 100 megabits a second worth of traffic, and therefore we're not going to accept this bilateral session across the exchange, or is it just accept everything? My question comes out of you saying you want to put a bot in to automate this. So I'm curious as to some of the logic that you think your team is using to program that bot.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the question. It's a great question. Yeah, great question. So generally, we want to peer people. If you look at peering DB, we have a selective policy. There's a 50 meg traffic requirement, but practically, if you have some traffic and you can reach us at a common IX and it makes sense to peer, then we'll generally look to configure that peering session with you. So that's the simplest logic for the smaller networks who might be making those requests, and they're the really clear-cut ones that we can approve with a very simple yes, no. The other logic we're building in is maybe you're a really large network operator and by accident, maybe an engineer requests a public peering session with us. And if you've got hundreds of gigs of traffic, we probably don't want to publicly peer review. So that's some of the logic we're building in as well. That if we have PNIs in a market and you request public peering, we might not auto-approve that and we might follow up with you. And they're the kind of logic steps we're looking for based on traffic, locality, and where the traffic's going.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you for the question, Michelle. Well, thank you again, Ben. Really useful talk. Thanks. Okay. Thank you, Ben. Next up is Marc Bruyere from IIJ. And Marc is going to talk about HolistiX peering automation, which may be useful at a peering conference. Who knows? Mind the carpet. It's not taped. Thank you, Marc.
Welcome. Just waiting that the screen is being shared. Bonjour. I'm glad to be here. I came at AfPIF in 2016. Actually, I was invited by ISOC at that time. And the share screen, okay, just waiting because I'm actually sharing screen. I have a video of the demo, just the things which set up properly on the screens. And in 2016 in Tanzania, I had a very good time, and I presented the works I've done on the research during my PhD around switching fabric, SDN based, that we build up. That's going to be what I'm going to be talking now, the management, the full stack to manage search switching fabric for internet exchanges as open source and free software, hardware as well for internet exchange operators. Okay. Then I work with Chris Visser at IJ Lab. Then we developed this HolistiX I'm going to be talking about at IJ Lab in Tokyo with the University of Tokyo and the WIDE project. Then how IXP can minimize effort, cost, and risk. Then first of all, we identified what type of different costs we're talking here. Then is the human cost was the two first here. administrative, commercials, so on, who manage to get the peering, training, and the billing. And the other one is engineering, the technical staff. And the other last one is all the hardware, switches, infrastructure, and so the cost for the internet exchange. The question is the effort and cost for connecting a new operator to the internet exchange as an IXP new member. And when we look into the repartition of different costs and different steps that happen to connect the new member, then the request to connect, provisioning, setup, validation, and maintenance across a different type of cost. The highest one is for, at that stage, for the setup and validations before going to maintain, and there's medium high cost. And the goal here is to reduce those costs, minimize as possible and so. And the same thing has the cost to do a change. When you have a switching fabric and you want to add a new switch or links or whatever topology of your switching fabric of your internet exchange, you go across different steps for design, staging, validations, pre-productions, and maintenance. And in this case, is way higher. You have to also obviously buy the equipment, then validate, do the design, verify that everything works, and do the staging with validation, pre-productions, and maintaining the new topology, for example, is very high. Then to reduce that cost at all the different points, that's the goal that we had on the project. And to do that, before we talk about automations, we will use automations, but to reduce complexity through a single web interface that everything goes through and so on. The HolistiX is actually a full automation stack, and this full automation stack is part of IXP Manager. IXP Manager, for who does not really operate in internet exchange, may not know, but IXP Manager with HolistiX, we have actually a lot of interest in working in that community. It's an open source platform, and we love this platform. We love a little bit less than 200 internet exchange are actually using IXP Manager every day. Just a quick note about IXP Manager. It's a free and open source software platform for internet exchanges, and it implements the best practice for operating the internet exchange. Example, you can select twice the same IP and so on, all different things. Mounts compliant to get the right rules to configure your BGP and so on. And it's a full stack management platform as well, all web-based and so, and you can do more with less with this approach. And it does also all the different configuration for your root server, managing BGP sessions for your internet exchange. Then what does HolistiX as an add-on to IXP Manager bring? And IXP Manager has a web interface, and so we integrated Miru. Miru is the first software module and is doing the planning. IXP Manager is mostly doing the provisioning, but Miru is a software module that we integrated inside IXP Manager. Then we have another one as Atos. After planning and provisioning, we verify the different modification we do before actually going to deploy it with the module called Cerberus. Then we introduce here a plan, verify, and deploy approach for the internet exchange operators. And to reduce the complexity and the cost for internet exchanges. It is based on the software designed network umbrella switching fabric, which change all the different broadcasts for HARP and so on unicast to address directly who need to receive such traffic and not broadcasting on your switching fabric. You get no more quarantine time when you have to connect a new operator. You do not have to do so because it has a perfect filtering to connect directly to the switching fabric. But all the vendor can actually support umbrella as it is. Just Miru, and then for the provisioning and planning. This is a screenshot of XP Manager. Then we have information already pre-provisions of the different member. Here, the locations, facility, and so, where's the PO and the speed they are, and so. This is inserted in the IXP Manager database. The same information here was more on the IPv4, IPv6 MAC address and localizations, that we use such informations to actually get into the Miru interface. This is a screenshot of the Miru module, the interface itself. You may recognize it as actually draw.io, or actually they changed the name, is diagram.net. We use the core open source software that we have modified to integrate inside XP Manager. And on the left, you have the different box here is drag and drop. You just have to get the boxes representing the switches you have provision in your network. Then Miru do visual network planning, drag and drop diagramming, and act as a network source of truth for your entire domain. And it generates the network configurations, and everything is emulated and test your network before deploying it. You can have buttons and so on. I will show you on a demo before you go and deploy it with a single click. It's obviously no more CLI. It's fully automations and through single interface. Atos, when you finish to do with Miru, you're planning and diagramming to declare what you want to do and so. Atos is emulating the entire config on using the real state of your network, and it tests traceability between the members. Is everything is valid? It tests redundancy and so on, turning on the links and switches and so on the emulated environment before pushing it to productions with servers. I see connections on the, and you see on Atos output is the logs. You can access the different logs of is the sharing stopped. Is few slide back. Okay. Seems to be not anymore inside the Zoom sessions where I'm sharing Win. Can someone verify this? Hello?
Wi-Fi issues. So,
I'm a separated Wi-Fi just to be sure that everything's worked, but I've been.
So is that talking to its own box
Yes.
somewhere else? Well,
Yeah.
okay, the problem is the Wi-Fi is so many channels. Can we
Reconnect? How do I reconnect? Okay.
Yeah. Why are you in the Zoom thing?
I don't know. It's just been disconnected.
Unless you need to be in the Zoom thing, I would get out.
Yeah, neat, because that's where I share my screen through.
Okay.
Okay, and where's the John?
Could we get somebody who knows how the Zoom interface works, because we're kind of stuck in the water here? Hello.
I need this. Okay. Okay, back again. Then we're revisioning and so on before Cerberus. Then mirror the web interface that we do the diagramming and so on. Then we declare the topology of the switching fabric, any changes be done through that single interface. And all the different states and so are fully done and so on, verified through Atos, when you can actually verify every state before going to productions. Here is the emulated interface and logs and so you have the different output. We'll show you all the different tests who's been running and is all fully supported with the P4 and OpenFlow using Docker for the emulation environment. Then we get the last module, Cerberus. It make it to deploy was pushing to the switching fabric switches and is supported through the API support of IXP Manager. And you have a rollback and failed state integrations. If an issue problems you have, you can actually go back on the previous stage. Then you can transfer the config generation and so to the controller automatically with it. Just to resume a little bit the different functions is automated deployment of any change on the topology or new member you connect to the internet change. And you have no more manual configuration when you're doing any type of changes on your IXP environment. There's the concept of push and green behind it. You actually verify and to minimize any risk before pushing to productions. And is made for SDN switching fabric. Then just a short time, just to show you a small video how works on real hardware. This is 4 members. There are 4 different switches. One member connected to the different 4 switch, they all connected together. We're going to declare the topology. But you have on the screen now, there's 4 SSH sessions on the host who does represent the router of the operator connecting to the internet exchange. They just ping to each other, and so this is the IP was pinging each other. They're already pre-provisioned inside XP Manager. We see how they're connected on everyone on separated switches, S1 to S4 and so on. And now we can drag and drop the switches directly on the diagramming interface, and then we're going to link them. We directly connect them one by one, and then we get the topology declare of the switching fabric, one for all. And after this, we can go and test that everything works with this topology and is automatically selecting the core switch links that will be connected to interconnect your switches. And he automatically then generate the different failure scenarios and so on. He tested. He's running onto the server where it's running HolistiX in the background, and it gives you the logs of the different tests and so on. Then you can look into, and then is in this case success. Then you can just play and deploy directly pushing the button, and it's fully deployed. And from there, we have all the different members who can now can each other automatically. And the actual deployment and collaborations we have with HolistiX it's been running for some time at the Toulouse Internet Exchange. Before that, FranceIX is now took over the Toulouse Internet Exchange, is part of the FranceIX networks, where actual switches were in productions at Toulouse are in the testbed lab of FranceIX, and we continued that collaboration with them. And Dixie is the historical IXP in Tokyo. And then we have all the equipment already in the data centers and the POP ready to migrate from the old Dixie network to the new one. What's called Pixie for Programmable Internet Exchange, and is the version 2. And we have different discussions with Civics and Kinix in Africa. And to sustain the peering community, then we're looking for testing and demo with IXP's operators and ISP as well, and aim to build a long-term initiative with the community. And we also, as researcher, we aim to publish academic papers. There's a link here of one of the papers, with you get all the details. Our works HolistiX. Then, if you have any questions, is also the website of HolistiX, GitHub and so on. And I'm open to question.
Thank you, Marc. Any questions for Marc? We're going to hold off on coffee until we have at least one. Okay, well, thank you very much, Marc. Coffee time. So quick housekeeping notes. Coffee break is going to run until 11 o'clock, so only 20 minutes because we're running 10 minutes late. So let's aim to be back in our seats by 11 a.m. We're going to start sharp at 11 a.m. I don't write this, so I'm just getting these are the things I have to do. And of course, peering personals, everybody's favorite. Send the email to peer@afpif.org, and Frank will stand up and sell your network to everyone else so you can peer. Sorry? He will introduce you so you can sell yourself. Better? Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you back in 20 minutes at 11 a.m. Thanks.
Thank you.